Hey everybody, today I am down in Los Angeles, California because I was able to get a sneak peek of the new 2023 Honda CR-V. As you'd expect, it's bigger and better than ever before. Unlike most of the competition that seems to be offering 1,000 different trim levels and standalone options, Honda has decided to simplify things for the 6th generation of the CR-V. So at the moment, we don't have an off-road dedicated trim and there's no overtly sporty trim, although there is a trim labeled Sport. This particular model in red is the new EX trim, so this is the base model. You can get a good idea of the kind of standard equipment we get here. Full LED headlights, really attractive, slim, full LED turn signals there as well. A very large and open grille, big Honda logo right there because there is a radar sensor behind. As you'd expect in a modern Honda, this has all of their latest active safety systems, including a reworked version of their adaptive cruise control system, lane centering system, and now blind spot monitoring is standard. Here's how the trim lineup works. The EX is the base trim, then we get a Sport trim, which is going to look somewhat like this up front. Then we get the EXL trim, which has leather and looks like that red one again. And then there is this top-end Sport Touring model. Sport and Sport Touring have the standard hybrid system under the hood, which gives you the most horsepower. The biggest difference, of course, is going to be the grille, which definitely is more aggressive and more open in the Sport and Sport Touring model. Sport and Sport Touring also have a more aggressive vent shape here at the bottom of the front bumper. This sort of reminds me of an integrated exhaust tip, actually. So if you've ever wanted your car to look similar going forwards and backwards, this trim might be for you. The top-end trim also gets well-integrated front parking sensors. As you move around to the side, the next thing you're going to notice is the much longer hood proportion than we had before. Honda says that the hood is significantly longer and significantly lower, and the entire CR-V is about 2.7 inches longer. This particular design reminds me a little bit of the current generation Acura RDX and MDX. Definitely a good thing to be reminded of when we're talking about a CR-V. Full disclosure, Honda has yet to release a complete spec sheet for the new CR-V, so there are a number of key dimensions that we do not know. For instance, we don't know what the ground clearance is, we don't know final legroom figures on the inside, but we don't get a slightly longer dash-to-axle ratio like we do find in a Mazda CX-5. So a lot of the extra length does appear to be up there in the front overhang, but the lower hood line definitely gives it a longer and sleeker appearance. Honda has long had a dedication to handling ability and driver engagement. That's likely going to continue with this generation of CR-V, and we certainly have wider tires than average. On the base model and on the hybrid trim, 235 width tires are standard. Honda's mission with this generation CR-V was to make it look more grown-up, more elegant, and more rugged simultaneously, and I think they've really achieved that with the sharper creases, relocating the side view mirrors down here to the body rather than up there in the A-pillar, and by moving that A-pillar back, they've given it that longer hood profile and perhaps a little bit more of a sports wagon meets crossover look. With an overall length of 184.8 inches, this is now about 2.7 inches longer than the previous generation. That gives us more rear seat legroom than we've had before, and the biggest cargo area that the CR-V has ever had. Definitely two great things when we're talking about a model that has always had a really accommodating back seat and a very generous cargo area. As with the front-end design, the back-end design changes a little bit, depending on whether you get the EX and EXL trim, which are going to look more or less like this red one, or the Sport and Sport Touring trim, which we're going to take a look at in a bit. The tail lamps are certainly more expressive than before, with little swooshes right here and this very distinctive angular strip right on the corner. One disappointment, the turn signal is an incandescent element, and that did surprise me because some other new Hondas, including some less expensive Hondas, now have full LED taillight modules in the back. This particular trim, which is not the hybrid model, has hidden exhaust tips tucked up right under the bumper. But unlike some of the luxury hybrids on the market right now, the hybrid version of the CR-V, which would again be the Sport and Sport Touring models, those have well-integrated exhaust tips, giving this more of a luxury flair. The hatch really is still pretty vertical in the back of the CR-V. That helps improve cargo practicality, but they do a really good job hiding that. They have this section here that kind of bumps out a little bit towards you right there, and then it tucks back in the rear, giving it the impression of more of a raked profile while still giving you the practicality of a vertical hatch. For 2023, there are two different drivetrains. EX and EXL get a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine standard. Sport and Sport Touring get the hybrid. The 1.5-liter turbo has been revised for this year. It produces 190 horsepower and 179 pound-feet of torque. It's mated only to a continuously variable automatic transmission and your choice of front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Honda has yet to release any fuel economy estimates for the new CR-V yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was more efficient than the outgoing model. They have said, however, that the all-wheel drive system has been revised. It will now send more power to the rear axle, and it has a snow mode and hill descent control for even more predictable behavior on rougher surfaces or slippery surfaces like ice and snow. For me, and I expect a lot of you, the big news is the new hybrid system. This is the 4th generation of Honda's two-motor hybrid. It's based around a 2-liter 4-cylinder Atkinson cycle engine and a twin motor unit over here on this side of the engine bay. Everything working together gives you 204 horsepower total and 247 pound-feet of torque. That may appear to be a slight reduction in horsepower over the last generation CR-V hybrid, but it actually is an improvement because Honda has changed the way that they're calculating the horsepower total for this vehicle. They haven't given us complete specifications on the motor units, but they are more powerful than the ones before. And they're also laid out a little bit differently under the hood. That supposedly will improve efficiency, improve the top end speed, improve acceleration, etc. As with the 1.5-liter turbo, we don't have any fuel economy estimates for the hybrid system just yet, but like the 1.5, I expect the fuel economy numbers are likely going to go up. Interesting twist, you can get front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive with the hybrid system now. Sport Touring is going to have all-wheel drive standard, Sport is going to have front-wheel drive standard, all-wheel drive as an option. And as before, this is a true mechanical all-wheel drive system. So if you don't like the way a RAV4 hybrid feels out on the road on slippery surfaces like snow or ice, you might want to get a CR-V hybrid instead, because this hybrid is going to feel exactly the same on those surfaces as the regular gasoline model because the all-wheel drive system is essentially the same. As before, the hybrid model uses a lithium-ion battery pack. I can't show you, but I have seen it. It's located right there under the load floor. Now, it does take the space of the spare tire, and it means that the cargo area is a little bit smaller in the hybrid model. Hybrid or no hybrid, the cargo area gets bigger for 2023. You'll get 36.3 cubic feet of storage space in the hybrid model or in the non-hybrid model when the floor is in this position, but because we don't have a battery pack, I can lower this a little bit further down and we get 39.3 cubic feet of cargo space. That is not quite the biggest in this segment, but it is among the largest. Now, under the load floor in this model, we do have a temporary spare tire, and it looks like almost enough room to put a full size if you wanted to. Cargo practicality has long been a CR-V hallmark, and I expect that to continue with this generation. One thing I noticed is that the cargo area is among the squarest in this segment. So if you're the kind of person that wants to go to Home Depot and just grab a big old barbecue, stick it right in their vehicle without questioning, this is the kind of vehicle that's going to be easy to accommodate that because of the large square nature of that opening. They also made the load floor definitely quite low and low to the ground for easier entry, and that's why we have this sort of ramp up to the seat backs in the rear. As before, the rear seats fold in a 60/40 fashion, and there's no ski pass-through right there in the middle. Honda says that front seat comfort has been improved, but a lot of folks are really going to notice the fact that even the base model gets a standard power driver seat, including a 2-way adjustable lumbar support. We also have a manual tilt telescopic steering column with a large range of motion, but unfortunately the bottom 2 trims have a urethane steering wheel, so it's definitely not going to feel as premium as the leather wheel that we get in the upgraded models. Also, one thing to know, most versions of the CR-V are likely going to have a manual passenger seat. Again, Honda has not given any specifics when it comes to legroom, but they have said that legroom has increased. And that's always been a selling point for the CR-V. With this front seat comfortably adjusted for me at 6 feet tall, actually a little further rearward than I would normally sit, there's still generous amounts of legroom back here. So this is easily the kind of vehicle where you could put rear-facing child seats in the back. There's also plenty of headroom, even though the moonroof is standard on all trims. With this seat in an upright position, I still have about 2 inches of headroom left. And that's really thanks to the very square profile that we find in the CR-V. This may not have all the same swoops and sexy lines that we find in some of the competition, but it is very practical on the inside. Also very practical, the rear doors open practically 90 degrees from the body. That makes it a lot easier to get in and out of the vehicle and to get children in and out as well. In addition to the extra room, rear seat passengers get a fold-down center armrest with 2 cup holders and rear seats that now have 8 stages of recline. This is the most upright position to make that cargo area very square, but as you can see, it's not overly comfortable, definitely functional, however, or you can put that seat in an extremely reclined position, which is among the more reclined in this segment. Now let's take a look around the inside of this top-end Sport Touring model. Again, the standard size moonroof is standard on all trims, but no panoramic moonroof is available in any trim. There's Alexandra, our intrepid video editor, in the back seat. As you can see, she's got plenty of room back there. We have height adjustable shoulder belts for the driver and front passenger and height adjustable headrests. To help dress up the interior, Sport and Sport Touring get contrasting trim on the upholstery. Sport gets fabric seats, Sport Touring gets the leather upholstery you see here, and EXL, of course, gets leather as well, but with the less powerful engine. One thing that surprised me, although this leather upholstery is perforated, the front seats are not ventilated, they are just heated. Moving from the front doors on over to the dashboard, the general theme of this interior is very much like the Honda Civic. The big thing that is similar is this cheese grater section that runs right across the dashboard. As you can see, that houses the air vents and a blank panel right there just between the dashboard and that glove box below. I really like this design. I do wonder how easy it is going to be to clean behind that cheese grater. Now, very little of this interior is directly shared with the Civic, so if you've heard rumors otherwise, you should know that very little of the actual components are shared with the Civic, but the style is very similar, especially the steering wheel and the instrument cluster there behind. One interesting twist, rather than the full LCD cluster like we find available in the Civic, this one has a partial LCD cluster, so 7 inches over there on that side, analog speedometer over there on the other side. The error messages are because this is a very early pre-production prototype model and a lot of things are just barely held together here. In the middle of the dashboard, we have 2 different infotainment screens. A 7-inch screen is standard. The 9-inch screen is optional. The 9-inch screen supports wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity. There's some physical buttons on the side, but the display is not as big as some of the competition. Below that, we have the controls for the dual zone automatic climate control, 2 USB inputs, Qi wireless charging mat, a pretty traditional console shifter here with D and B in the model with the hybrid system, L in the model without, drive mode toggle right there, hill descent control, electric parking brake right there as well. Between the front seats, we find 2 very large cup holders, some extra storage trays, and what Honda says is the largest center console storage area in the segment. This definitely is deep and wide as well, so you could definitely put a lot of large items inside. Going back to that steering wheel for a moment, on the back of the wheel we have paddle shifters. These are regen paddles on the hybrid model, which is a handy touch. And we don't know about the functionality of this system just yet, but I suspect it's going to be pretty similar to the current generation hybrid model. You'll find the controls for the infotainment system on this side of the wheel. The little scroll wheel here and the home button, that controls that multifunction LCD cluster. And then we find the controls for the standard active safety systems and radar adaptive cruise control over there on the right side. The heated steering wheel button has been relocated to the center spoke down there at the bottom. On the A-pillar, we get Bose logos because this is the first CR-V ever to have a Bose audio system. This top-end trim has a 12-speaker audio system. And interesting twist, this is only the second Honda model ever to get a Bose audio system as well, the first being the current generation Honda Civic. As a family vehicle, there are 2 unexpected twists in the back of the CR-V. The center seat belt for the rear passengers comes right there out of the ceiling. That does reduce cargo capacity a little bit in the rear. And the top tether anchor for the center child seat position is right back here just above that cargo area opening. That does make it a little bit more awkward to have cargo and child seats in the vehicle at the same time. Be sure and hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen because sometime later this summer I will have my hands on the CR-V, and that's probably when I'll have more detailed specifications like legroom figures and other specifications that Honda has been a little bit short on just yet. Also later this summer, the CR-V is actually going to be on sale, so if you want to get your hands on the new 2023 CR-V, be sure and contact your Honda dealer now because the gasoline model is going to be on sale this summer, the hybrid model a few months later in the fall of 2022. Also coming later this summer, pricing information for both the hybrid model and the regular model. That is one tricky thing. We don't know pricing just yet. So I really can't comment on whether the CR-V is a good value or not, but I would expect it to be. I wouldn't be surprised if pricing stuck pretty close to the current generation CR-V. The hybrid model, that's anybody's guess at the moment, but Honda has said that they expect the hybrid model to account for about half of the CR-V's volume, and that would be a significant increase over the current generation CR-V hybrid, which is somewhere around a quarter of the volume. That's a trend that we are definitely seeing in the compact crossover segment, and it is right in line with what Toyota is doing with the RAV4 in terms of its volume and what we're likely seeing from the Koreans this generation as well. If you're looking for a really elegant crossover in the compact segment, you should definitely put the CR-V on your shopping list. I love the look, and in this base EX trim, I'm really glad that Honda brought a base model out. It still has the elegant look that you'd expect from Honda. It doesn't really come across as a cheaper version of this top-end trim because there are so many common components. The headlights, they're exactly the same. We still have the chrome accents here rather than boring blacked out bits. We still have body-colored mirror caps, things like that. And that's not what we find in most of the competition's base models. Now, some folks looking for a really high-end CR-V, they may be disappointed. You won't find things like power lumbar support on the passenger side. You won't find the enormous screens that we find in the Koreans. For instance, in the new Kia Sportage, you can get a model with twin 12.3-inch screens in the dashboard. It really looks like an expensive Mercedes on the inside, but that model may be more expensive than this top-end Sport Touring trim. Again, we don't know pricing just yet, so it could be that Honda has chosen to keep their pricing walk a little bit narrower than some of the competition. That's likely because, again, as I said at the beginning of the video, there are only going to be 4 different trims of the CR-V. If you want a more expensive Honda, they would love to sell you a Pilot. If you want a less expensive Honda, there is, of course, the new HR-V as well. As always, be sure to mash that subscribe button. Find us over at Auto Buyer's Guide, EV Buyer's Guide, the Auto Buyer's Guide podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those other social places. We'll see all of you next week.